Hey, howdy, how are you doing? This is my review for a video game for the Nintendo 64 called 1080 1080 degree or something. That snowboarding game for the Nintendo Switch that has come out for the Nintendo 64 gaming program on the Nintendo Switch. And I have my Nintendo Switch here, and as you can see, I mixed two types of Joy-Con controllers to form a unique grip and everything for my unique hands, because I like to be more particular about one hand apart from the other hand to test my mind on my left and right hand of gaming. And this is really cool. You can even see it right here. And I was playing 1080 with this controller. Now that looks awesome, right? I do recommend doing something like that. If you are more left-handed than right-handed, or more right-handed than left-handed, like you could definitely do alters of Joy-Con controllers from the Nintendo Switch like this, and everything. And this Nintendo Switch right here is basically over 5 years old or something. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've bought it. Now, do I recommend 1080 to you? Well, from a historical viewpoint, yes. Especially if you could play it for a very low cost. And in that sense, it's very worth your money. However, I've noticed that a lot of things have happened since 1080 came out for the Nintendo 64 years ago. There has been a lot of evolution of snowboarding games, a lot of nature of snowboarding games, and those kinds of things. I mean, maybe you were playing Nintendo 64 games with winter themes in them. Maybe you were playing the 1080 snowboarding video game before you even knew that this existed. And all of those kind of play a factor into things because, especially if you played video games in your childhood, when you revisit these games as an adult, you realize in many cases, although you were a child when you were playing these games and you did love these games, in some cases, your love was irrational and premature. Because when you're a child, you did not have no responsibilities like paying your taxes or going to school or visiting your workplace for a role in business and those kinds of things. And even to this day, when I speak to you as someone who is young, but is basically like a retired man. And that's sad because it's like I'm only like 37 years old. Basically what happened was in Sacramento about 11 years ago, I got caught with some kind of mind sickness and those kinds of things. And I had to be taken to hospitals and everything. And basically from then on, I was just basically disabled and basically forced to retire in my youth. And right now I am doing fine. My family does take care of me and everything, and I can still, get these kinds of things and those kinds of things with the budgets we have, but it has not been very fun in a lot of ways. And for years and years after I was diagnosed with stuff in Sacramento, I was in denial of my mental problems, and I was telling my parents somehow things would really, really get better, and then I would, be back in the thrust of things when it comes to the youth I used to have of working very hard in restaurants and those kinds of things. But then it became apparent to me over the last few years that, that was not likely to happen. And just recently I've had another kind of mind attack and those kinds of things. And, this is nothing scary. It's nothing scary. In fact, it's actually weirdly kind of humorous and pleasing, although disturbing. Imagine if you walk into a restaurant and you suddenly believe you're in Disneyland. And you believe that there's all these Disney things around you. Yeah. That's what it could be like to have. That is what it can be like to have that happy-go-lucky mental confusion sort of thing. And at times we do need intrigue and input from other people to know what our places are in the universe and to know when we are just going crazy and need a helping hand. And definitely with this Nintendo Switch controller that I made here, and there are other versions of this Nintendo Switch controller you can make for yourself, you will get a lot of helping hands with the Nintendo Switch. But 1080, the classic Nintendo 64 game, really is only of any value when you play contest mode, as in when you play the contest. I don't care about time attack and trick attack and match attack. I mean, those were meaningful like over 20 years ago, before a lot of things existed, like before even Halo existed. But now it's like, going back to these things is like dealing with some buggy and unexplainable Atari flicks, and there were modes like that in video games from time to time because they would offer things in video games that would enhance your portability or enhance your playability or would enhance your joysticking. But in the long run, it's really about the whole game in general and how the game feels when you go for the challenge and receive whatever merit and honest pride you get from the challenge. And definitely 1080 as a video game today, it's like it is a game that I once had a lot of pride and honor for, but now it's like when I look at it, I notice a lot of bugs and errors in it that are just kind of irritating and maybe a little offensive and those kinds of things. So for example, like maybe I'll notice like I will go with my snowboarder man or woman, I'll choose my snowboarder athlete, and during the run in the contest, maybe half of the tricks do not register on the program when they should have. And I know that's not a purpose right there. Because often when you think of commercials and advertising for video games, they tend to show video games when they are played at their best, So if there's like a TV commercial for Pac-Man, obviously they would show the best player playing Pac-Man the best way generally, to show how Pac-Man should be played, to advertise Pac-Man for TV commercials and for video game profits and those kinds of things. But now it's like, with 1080, it's like I get into a lot of these modes and options and selections and styles that do not seem to speak of anything effective or do not seem to speak of anything dramatic. I would even switch between different snowboards with different riders and stuff, and I would just not notice really any difference. It's like as if there are a lot of things on the Nintendo Switch, on the Nintendo 64 game, that just existed on paper, like in the instruction manual and stuff. And back then when I was a child, I was pretty pedantic with some of my reading of video game instruction manuals because I was trying to, reconcile like what it means to have this, what it means to have this, what it means to have this. And at times reading instruction manuals can work when it comes to having better awareness and challenge and difficulty for playing a video game in honesty and responsibility. However, it's like, on the other hand, it's like reading instruction manuals, ironically enough, can damage your awareness of what a game really is. I mean, because the fact is, a lot of what makes up the game is not like merely from an instruction manual, but is from like how a ball floats in the sky, or how a disc goes into the ground, or how a wheel spins over the mountain, and those kinds of things. A lot of video game stuff is more based on like imaginary physics, even if they seem pretty real in whatever definition we increase to the higher levels. And definitely with this Nintendo Switch controller here, it's like, if there is high definition on this, I don't notice it very much. And to tell you the truth, the Nintendo 3DS, although the Nintendo 3DS portable device by Nintendo did have 3D capabilities, the 3D, ironically enough, mostly made the high definition qualities whenever they were present even worse, because when it comes to high definition is not always about 3D. At times, high definition is about sharper colors and sharper controls and sharper options and those kinds of things. It's not always about like the third dimension element. But 1080 for the Nintendo 64 you can find on this Nintendo Switch console, of course, and you don't have to have these controller options. And hey, look, I can even like take this off just to kind of show you, you know, like if I can find it. I forget how to take it off sometimes, but definitely a lot has changed, and the Nintendo 64, whether we like it or not, had some similarity to the Virtual Boy that was released in the mid-1990s, because both consoles had relatively small libraries of games, and both consoles on the beginning eras were basically like samplers for the greater things to come for nerds and geeks. And that's my estimation of 1080 for the Nintendo 64. If I was to give it a rating, I would give it like 4.4 out of 10, if I would give a rating. But that's risky because numbers do not really have that much reality to what the quality really is, and it's better to get into my ideas about what 1080 is rather than like look at the rating itself, because the rating is just a number. Yeah, whenever a reviewer reviews a game, like really you should consider the reviewer's ideas, not necessarily the grade or the number. And that's my estimation. 1080 is not bad, but it's disappointing. You take care.